Andrea, can you hear me? Andrea? Andrea, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Andrea, did you send this link to participants? One?
Yes, I sent it to Toyin. Toyin sent it to participants.
Okay. And
But I'm not sure she received it with her internet not working.
Andrea, did you send this link to participants? One?
Yes, I sent it to Toyin. Toyin sent it to participants.
Okay. And
But I'm not sure she received it with her internet not working.
listen, Andrea, if her internet doesn't work, you take the moderation, okay?
Hello, what?
Let's connect on Facebook, please. Just connect on Facebook. Are you on Facebook?
No.
Can you go to Facebook, please?
I am now. I cannot see. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. 1 minute.
Hey. Put up the first page of the webinar. Then put up that page.
Did you share the link?
Yeah, I've shared the link. Yes.
Perfect.
If you put up the first slide on you, yeah. No, the first one. That's Anne. Keep going. Back. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. There we go. And then we'll just communicate through our webinar. No one's on yet. Shall I give them a call? I've sent it to all of them.
Yes. Can you paste? Can you perhaps paste the link in the
Sorry?
WhatsApp group? Can you paste the link in the WhatsApp group, maybe?
No, I don't want them to have it from the WhatsApp group. We
Okay.
hope, yeah, if they have it in there, yeah, they need to do it from their computers. So I'm going to quickly call them.
Yeah, they should have received it anyway. So.
I know, Anne's already come back to me, but that was on the first email. So I just want to. Oh,
Salim, can you hear me? I can't hear you anymore. Can you hear me?
I know it's open, so I've got things to do, so I'm doing them in peace and quiet because this is
cool. Cool. No, I was
so
worried
just,
something happened.
no, it's okay. I can hear you.
Well.
They should all be on. But we've got 5 minutes. Okay, I'm going to call them.
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello.
Yes?
Hi, this is
Hi,
Elodie.
hello, Elodie. Welcome.
Thank you.
We can hear and see you very well.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. Good.
So we're starting in half an hour, right?
No, actually, no, in 5 minutes.
Oh, in 5 minutes.
We
Okay.
we just had some issue in opening the room, but now we're fine. So we shared
Okay.
the link a bit
Hi,
later.
Ludi.
Hello, Toyin. Hi.
How are you?
Good, good. Thank
Oh
you.
gosh,
So let me get organized.
It's been a rehearsal. Thank
Okay.
you. It's been a rehearsal. I don't know where the others are. I'm trying to call them. Have you got the WhatsApp next to you?
I do.
Have you got your WhatsApp group next to you?
Yeah.
Lovely, because I put everything there.
Okay.
Are we live?
Okay, let me just grab a few things. I'm not totally ready on my end. I'll be there in 2 seconds. I leave it on.
Sure. Excellent. Hi, Ogunwani, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
We'll be
You hear
starting
me?
very shortly. We're just waiting for the other three guests. Wow. Gosh.
Okay.
Oh. All right. We are going to have to start soon.
Everything all right?
I'm hoping so. It's the start, but I'm just waiting for another two guests. Oh, God. Another three guests.
Okay, great.
Oh my God. Everybody has internet challenges now.
Are you having any problems?
No. We'll start in about 5 minutes. My apologies for people who are already with us. We're just waiting for a few more guests. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Anne. How are you? Thank you.
Hi.
We're just waiting for Naomi, and then we can start. Eugenia, are you there?
Hi, can you see? Yes, I can hear you and see you. Can you see me, hear me?
Great. Can you put your screen on, then I'll be able to see you.
Can I do what now? What do you need me to do, Tony?
Turn on your screen. There's a little, if you just touch the top of your link, you'll see a screen to turn your camera off or on.
It says my camera is on. I'm not sure why.
I can't see you. You need to turn, just
Yeah.
cover your mouse over it to make sure that it's on.
It's on.
Perfect. Thank you. Right, we'll be starting very shortly. Okay. Hello. Can we see you, please? Elodie, can we see you?
Yes, that's hi.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. We're just waiting for Naomi. I'm not sure where she is. I haven't heard from her, but we'll need to start very soon. She's waiting as well. Okay. Okay. So, Obi to be online.
Okay, I'm here.
Oh, lovely. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Hi.
everyone.
Hello.
Good afternoon. I'm just going to do an introduction to the webinar. Hopefully, Naomi will meet us halfway there. Hello, Anne. Can we see your screen, please? Lovely. Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the Education Made in Africa webinar. We thank our partners, the African Innovation Foundation, the Maasai Girls Fund, the Kenya Center for Excellence, and Real Living Films. My name is Toyin Danya, and I'm the country manager for Djembe Communications in Ghana, and I'll be your moderator for today. As leading influencers, I'm excited that Djembe Communications will shed light and build upon the wide range of meaningful initiatives and dialogues that took place on the Literacy Day on 8th of September this year. Today's discussion is our way to discuss solutions to advance literacy and explore new models of education across Africa. This action-packed discussion will address the key solutions and challenges. So we have some wonderful questions, including, are private schools the only answer to challenges in the African education system? How do we surpass outdated Western education models to find African-specific solutions? How is technology advancing literacy and supporting education? And what are the effective tools and mechanisms needed to tackle literacy across the age group? At the end of today, we're going to spend 5 minutes meeting our wonderful panelists. They're going to introduce themselves to you. 30 minutes of actual panel discussion, and then we're going to go ahead and have 20 minutes audience participation with your questions and answers. So you can post your questions in the chat feature on the left-hand side of your broadcast if you're watching on YouTube, and directly on your Facebook page of Djembe Communications. Thank you very much. We're now going to meet your panelists. So, this is Anne Ebsu Okongo, a Reading Revolutionary and Mandela Washington Fellow, based in Kenya. Welcome, Anne. Hello, Anne. Have you got your mic on? I can't hear you. Oh, Anne, you need to turn your mic on. There you go. Fabulous. Introduce yourself. Okay. We're trying to hear from Anne. Hello, Anne, is your mic on? Okay, we'll come back and introduce you to Anne in a moment. Thank you very much for that. We'll introduce Anne towards the end. Our second panelist is Elodie de Wallencourt, the director for the African Innovation Foundation, and she's based in Switzerland. Very nice to meet you, Elodie. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Toyin. I hope you can hear me. I don't know, but yes, I have the impression it works. Thank you. So my name is Elodie. I'm Managing Director of AIF, African Innovation Foundation. We're a foundation that is created in 2009 by an African Swiss entrepreneur based in Zurich. We're actually active in 3 areas. The one major program that we started was an innovation prize for Africa. We also have an electronic library of law and governance texts in Africa. And we have a third program, which is a social impact program in Angola currently, where we're introducing innovations in 5 thematic areas: education, water and sanitation, energy, small-scale energy projects, local economic development, and health. I'll be speaking a little bit about this program in particular in our next conversation. Perhaps a little bit about me. So I'm actually have worked since several years on private sector development in Africa, and that's definitely the core focus of my work has been on how to support SME development. My entry in education comes really around this program for social impact that we have in Angola. So I think what I really expect from that conversation today is get to learn a little bit about different approaches. We've been really looking at several of the things that are happening in Africa with great interest, in particular in terms of how do we scale up, how do we replicate some of the very exciting and innovative approaches that are happening in different places of Africa. How do we import them in a specific country, which is Angola, and how come there is no such place where you could go and find out exactly what is happening in all areas that would interest people like us. So I'll be speaking a little later about the type of models that we're really interested about, and I hope we can get a discussion around this.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Elodie. And now for our third panelist, I'd like to introduce you to Eugenia Teji-Manson, founder of the Young Educators Foundation, based here in Ghana. Welcome, Eugenia.
Hi, Tony. Hi, everybody.
Eugenia, I can hear you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
So my name is Eugenia Teji-Manson. I'm the country director for Young Educators Foundation. It's a charity that I basically co-founded with a colleague, Ghana and Nigeria. Basically, all we do is promote literacy and education. I'm an educator and a social entrepreneur, passionate about literacy and education, particularly in Africa. Our programs basically make literacy and education fun and more engaging. So in both Ghana and Nigeria, we're known for our flagship program called the Spelling Bee. It's modeled after the Scripps Spelling Bee of the United States, where Ghana has been participating 10 years now. The unique thing about our model, the models we run for both primary, secondary, and tertiary students, is that it's meant to be a complement, so like a co-curricular activity that happens in the classroom. Looking forward to a very exciting conversation today about today's topic, which has to do with education made in Africa. I think we've got a very lovely panel, and I can't wait to hear what everybody else has to say.
Great, thank you very much. So, our fourth panelist isn't actually with us at the moment, so we'll go back to Anne and just introduce Anne again. Anne, how's your volume now?
It is okay. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, Anne. We want to hear all about you.
Okay, my name is Anne Eboso.
Tell us about yourself, please.
Yes, so you can hear me now?
Yes.
My name is Anne Eboso, a 2016 Mandela Washington Fellow. I am a reading revolutionary, which means I work with campaigns that create a reading revolution in Kenya. I am the founder of Chula Bot Library. I am a reading ambassador with Starter Library, an organization that I helped in setting up, which ideally starts libraries in schools in Kenya. And finally, I am a festival producer of 2 festivals in Kenya that create a platform for celebrating culture, ideas, and books. So anything about creating excitement around reading for pleasure, you'll always get me there. And I'm looking forward to having a very exciting and interactive session. And I hope by the end of it all, we'll all think and we'll all agree with Albert Einstein when he said, if you want your children to be intelligent, you read them fairy tales. And if you want your children to be more intelligent, you read them more fairy tales. Thank you.
Fabulous. What a lovely introduction. Thank you so much. And thank you for your patience. We have our 5th and final panelist. I'd like to introduce you to Obinwani Okeke, founder of the Literacy Africa International and based in Nigeria. Welcome, Obinwani.
Hi.
Let's hear from you, please. Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you all hear me? Okay, good. My name is Obinwani Okeke. I'm an entrepreneur, but I started Literacy Africa International when I was doing my master's. I lived in Australia, and I found the gap in the literacy problem that we have back home in Africa. So I and a friend of mine, his name is William Moore, we went around Melbourne collecting children's books. Just like she mentioned, we found out that the kids were not reading stories and books that they were going to be fond of when they grow up. So we went collecting these books, and people were very much willing to give out these books back in Australia. And within 4 months, we were able to collect and ship over 100,000 books to 4 countries in Africa. And immediately after we were able to achieve that, I thought to myself, why not pick up and do this in my spare time? And that was when Literacy Africa International was born. And I later incorporated it into my foundation, Invictus Foundation, because my company is Invictus Group of Companies. So this is what I do on the side. We bring stories, beautiful stories to the African kids who are not pretty much privileged to access these books. So I'm very passionate about education in Africa and literacy.
Wow, that's fantastic. What an introduction. Thank you so much for that. Well, there you have it. They're your panelists for today. But before we start, I just want to give you a few key insights that will help us sort of frame this panel discussion. Africans at the age of 16 and 40 look at education to be the key to fueling entrepreneurial creation. And nearly 27% of the 4,000 respondents from Angola, Ghana, Mozambique, and Nigeria cited inadequate education systems and a lack of access to skills as the top barriers to fostering entrepreneurship in the sub-Saharan regions. So we know education is very important. So we have 30 minutes, and our first topic will be, are private schools the only answer to challenges in Africa education system? Elodie, would you like to speak a little bit about the successful approaches you found with this question, please?
Thank you, Toyin. Yes, I'd love to. As I briefly mentioned in my intro, looking at our social impact program in Angola, we really screen the market to look for successful approaches in providing the skills that are required by the private sector and in forging a better future for the continent. And we found 5 areas of where they were really innovative models that were all anchored in private sector-led education. And so I'd like to say, yes, indeed, private sector is a big part of that answer. Not only, of course, that's just in complementarity to public sector. And the 5 areas in which we really found model were the following. It's technical and vocational school, private higher education, skill-focused alternatives, low-cost private schools in the nursery, primary, and secondary levels, introduction of ICT in schools, and new financing mechanisms for supporting low-cost private education. And so I'd like to share with you some of the very exciting areas or projects we found along this path. And it's of course not an extensive list of everything. There might be so many more that I just forgot, but these are the type of things we really were quite interesting for us. So starting by technical and vocational training, some of the core skills that are needed in Africa for us are not academicians, but they are professionals in all sorts of areas that will be needed by the private sector. IT, electrician, plumber, executive assistant, web designers, graphic designers. So all these skills, you need to find them if you're starting your business. And vocational schools are really those that might be providing this type of basic core skills and technical skills. So any model that we look in that area needed to rely on solid comprehension of private sector needs, ensuring prioritization, ensuring a good assessment of trainers and modules, and not just be a really curriculum that is designed for industry specificities. So the first one I'd like to share is really WAVE. It's a Nigerian vocational school that is focused on hospitality. And they were really interesting because they looked at the needs from private sector in the hospitality industry. And they screened people through emotional intelligence test assessments to determine what type of natural skills people had to do this or that ability. Like a receptionist needs to be very client-oriented. So they looked for this type of basic skills in people's CVs. Another very exciting, so that's WAVE. Another exciting approach was a South African, I think it's a non-profit called the R&B. And they assess candidates to better match them to the jobs they have on their in their database. So employers can approach them. They train young people to be more prepared for jobs. They match the candidates. They get them ready for work. And they were really successful in placing their R&Bs around different type of jobs. And this would be the type of things that you should extend and scale up massively across the continent. Another interesting was the Held High Foundation that looked at eradicating rural poverty globally, beginning with India. They were providing training to equip villages with knowledge and skills that are to help them access to higher employment opportunities. And so they really went into the villages with the skills needed for villages. So not an agriculture university, but looking at very specific and technical skills that were required in remote areas, in remote villages, and placing people to actually train these villages. So these are the types of training in a vocational space that we found really attractive in complementarity, of course, to the sort of more traditional actors you see, which are providing vocational training, normally in relation to government health schools. And we thought that these were 3 things that could be plugged in to existing private schools, private vocational training schools. Another area is really higher education. That's only 1/10 of the world's 1,000 leading universities are from Africa. And most of these top universities in Africa are in South Africa. I think 8 of the 10 top African universities are based in South Africa. So there's not sufficient universities, not sufficient good university, but there are some very good ones. And I'd like to share a little bit on those which we found of higher exceptional quality, and not the South African ones, because that's they are already there. One thing we really liked was Burkina Faso, which focused on the school is called 2IE, and it's really focused on entrepreneur skills and frontiering with water and environmental engineering. So the idea was there to complement the scientific and technical teaching modules with a special focus on the learning of management and entrepreneurial tools with know-how, with a proactive time, so actually exchange programs with private sector. And so this university, 2IE in Burkina Faso, has had very good success in actually preparing their engineers for work life, and not just making engineers that are good in abstract thinking. Another one is Ghana Ashesi University College. It's a private liberal arts college in the outskirts of Accra. Perhaps our colleagues there from Ghana knows them. Created in 2002. And it has been at the forefront of really combining education with leadership skills, with helping to create a sort of cohort of skilled Africans who are ethical, entrepreneurial, ready to help access the continent needs. And they really, so they're now hoping to launch their engineering computer sciences department very soon, or they have perhaps. And so they combine also their computer science with leadership, entrepreneurship, and all the core skills. Again, in Ghana, there's also water entrepreneurial schools for technology, which are offering aspiring African entrepreneurs with a fully sponsored 2 years intensive full-time program. And they really look at the spectrum of skills that are required to build successful businesses, including computer programming, software development, product management, finance, marketing, all these aspects that are looked at globally. And more Pan-African outlook, of course, is African Leadership Academy. Everyone knows they're offering a 2-year pre-university program focused on entrepreneurial leadership and African studies. So preparing the young leaders, they're taking from the age of 16 to 19 across the continent, people that have demonstrated potential and a passion for Africa and an entrepreneurial spirit, and record for community service. So people that would be potentially the change makers. So these were models where we thought, they've understood, something about training, which we really wanted to look at and potentially see how we could plug from these experience, bring them in Angola, try to scale up this type of things or reproduce them. Another area which we found was really interesting is that very often it's not at university level that you change people. We need to focus actually at the younger students, and the way we approach children education is very important, especially if you're working in poor communities, because poverty marks the brain and it can have very long-term negative biological imprints and damages to the educational capabilities. So starting early we thought was very central, and the question was, which are the models that are actually exciting there? Definitely it's very often about how you finance this, and one of the models, again, Ghana, Omega Schools. We thought Omega Schools in Ghana are created as a social business, they're making profit. They're never forgetting, however, that their aim is to offer quality education at the lowest cost possible. And the parents pay a little bit, so they have this model pay as you learn chain. So it's a daily fee of $0.65 per day. So it's equivalent, so it's very low, but it is still something for many people. And so it's probably comparing to the hidden fees you have if you're sending your child to public school. So that was the price range they were looking at, right? So they are hidden fees, the uniforms, the books, whatever you need to pay to the teachers sometimes, really depends on the country. And so they looked at creating a school that is good quality with very, very low costs, and they're already educating 20,000 students. You have many of these, but yeah, so I won't go to Uganda. I think one of the Ugandan interesting one was this next generation schools that was targeting government-funded secondary schools to introduce efficient school and budget management and teacher training and accountability awareness and engaging the community, the schools, the district. They are there different models that are exciting. The one thing that we're interested about, but I'll perhaps talk a little bit later in that conversation, is how do you engage in creativity training and participatory training for the kids very early. Kids need to learn how to create and to be very conscious of their creating abilities so that they can really transform their environment. So these are the type of things also that we'd like to plug into that type of things.
Elodie, thank you so much. You've quite a few of our questions.
No, I'll come back. I'd like
one more thing to say.
So you want me to be shorter, I guess. That was a hint. Let me just wrap up then. Thanks, Toyin, for being so nice with me doing that. But so just one thing. One obvious thing is ICT in schools. There's lots of materials from all sorts of big universities. We want to look at how we make that available in the schools, in innovation hubs, in many different places, so that people have access to that. But there's one thing that we'd have liked to spend a little bit more time is new financing mechanisms to support low-cost private education. It costs basically, well, it depends, but normally public tertiary education Cameroon costs around 80 euros per year, but it will cost in Tanzania perhaps around 600 to 1,800 euros. And so the question is really, if you're trying to offer private education, you need to look at the cost and what are the mechanisms to ensure that people would have access to that. We looked at two very interesting models. One is really providing student loans and education loans. There is a financing facility called the REFA, the Regional Education Finance Fund for Africa, a mechanism that is supporting financial institutions with support, financing, and technical assistance to help them provide these student loans to people in different locations. So they work in partnership with financial institutions. And we thought that was a really exciting one, how to replicate these type of things. And the other one that is really very new is the Jacobs Foundation.
I'm sorry. Can we hold that one just maybe for our closing statement?
Okay, no problem. Great. Sorry for that. I get excited when I talk about these things.
Taking notes. But we're really happy as well to say that Naomi Lucas has joined us. And we just want to say a nice welcome to Naomi. Thank you for joining us. Would you like to just introduce yourself while you're here and just finish the rest of that question, because I know you wanted to contribute to that question as well. So if you could do the two, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, great. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Okay, great. My name is Naomi Lucas. Let me just make it quick. Founder, Graduate Pro. Essentially, Graduate Pro was founded to bridge the gap between school and work. And this need became apparent when I was on a project that took me around to about 32 states within Nigeria and then across the continent as well. And then realized that there was a...
Can you put
Sorry?
your camera on? Can you put your camera on, please? We can't see you.
I have. It says, okay.
Oh,
can you see me now?
That's just your picture.
You can?
Yep. Okay.
Oh.
Sorry. Can you continue, please? Thank you.
Okay, great. So basically did some traveling around and realized that there was a very major need for some sort of reinforcement for the graduates that we churn out within the continent. And that's essentially what gave birth to Graduate Pro as we know it today. And it's basically dealing with young people over time that made me write the book, I'm a Graduate Now What, which we should be launching before the year runs out. Regarding private education, now I joined late, so I'm not sure what the last panelist said, but I do have my thoughts on that.
Yes, please.
Okay, great. I think that if it's for profit, then it's most likely not going to work. And reason being that, of course, it's for profit, so it's going to be difficult for everyone to be able to access it if they want to. Now, education is a fundamental human right. It's not something that you can do without, irrespective of your station in life, how you were born, where you were born, you have a right to be educated. And I worry that private education may not afford everyone that opportunity. That is on the one hand. Then there's also the issue of course, the inadequacies that I mean, just looking at the SDGs and the progress that different countries within sub-Saharan Africa have made, it's very clear that we have some critical inadequacies in terms of infrastructure and, of course, economic and political empowerment as well. So that's one very major thought for me. The second will be that, quite frankly, if we're going to make it work, then there has to be some sort of partnership between and within private sector organizations. I don't know what to call that, but just getting themselves together, pulling funds, and then getting trust to administer those funds to make quality education available to different people, irrespective of the circumstance surrounding their birth.
Wow, thank you very much. There's some lovely insights, and welcome again, Naomi. So,
Yes,
on to our second topic. So, how do we surpass outdated Western education models and find African-specific solutions? We heard a little bit from Elodie, but I'd love Anne to give us some of your thoughts, please. And if you could give us about 2 or 3 minutes, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll try to be very brief. And according to me, Western education is multi-faced. We inherited this during the colonial period, and a lot of African countries continued with this post-independence. And I'll talk in the case for Kenya, for instance, where we had the 7423 system that we inherited from Britain. Then we eventually changed that to the 844 system, which we inherited from the US system. And all of this sort of, I feel they're outdated because they have a bit of flaws. And I'll just focus on 3 flaws, for instance. One, they are academic oriented. So it means like we are having students reading, but they're always reading for exams. It is not for pleasure. So it is so much exam oriented. The second thing is that it is so much theoretical oriented. It is so much theory and little practicals. And then these are some of the things that Africa is really struggling with, because when it comes to application of this, when you have so much theory and we have no idea how to apply, then that becomes a problem. And thirdly, we are putting a lot of emphasis on the sciences compared to arts. So this makes some careers more lucrative than others. And then we are having a lot of children struggling to be certain, even just the perception of parents and the society at large. So why am I working on reading initiatives? So that is what I think is what we need, that is how we need to fill in the gaps. So if you look at the traditional African setup, stories were used to teach. They are used to teach values. They are used to teach life skills. They are used to pass on information. And it was always very interactive, having children sitting around the grandparents and the grandparents telling these stories. And that is what you're saying. Can we read? Because reading for pleasure is just taking us back to this kind of mood. And then as a reading revolutionary, I got tired of hearing people say, if you want to write something from an African, you put it in a book. So together with other reading revolutionaries, we teamed up to try and just change these attitudes, because we think that these attitudes are very important in shaping the education system that we want for Africa. So people might ask why reading is important. Reading is important because, one, it nurtures creativity and critical thinking, and we all have to admit that that is what we need in today's society. Reading empowers, reading builds and promotes literacy, and reading correlates, a healthy economic growth correlates with the reading habits of a society. So I always say, like, a reading nation is a thinking nation, and a thinking nation is an empowered nation. And once a nation is empowered, then the economy grows. And then in that point, another one important factor about reading is, according to OECD, that is Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, it puts in a lot of emphasis. It actually says, like, reading for pleasure is one of the most important factor in improving employability, in career progress and social standing of a child, regardless of their background or the parents' income. So you see, like, reading is really, really, really very key. And that is why we are trying to create excitement around reading for pleasure through festivals. We are having all these authors, amazing lineup of authors, people talking about reading for pleasure, people talking about books for once without thinking of exams, having just this exciting moment and just, loving the moment, and having read alouds, having children reading from the same text at the same time. It's exciting, unique. So they can do it together, and it doesn't matter in different languages. Yeah. Even the children who are able differently can participate. They can sign, they can use the Braille language, filling in. It's just that space that you're filling in. Like, reading is something that is uniting us. It is the language of unity. And I think if we incorporate a lot of this in the curriculum as Africans, then the African continent will move forward. Because ideally, for children not to read, not even get lack of access to books, that is a violation of children's rights. And I will echo what Naomi said earlier. Like, these are basic fundamental rights. And if we are not encouraging it, it's a violation of children's rights. I hope I took 3 minutes.
You did. I'd like to add. Very much. Thank you very much. And moving on to our third question, how has the technology advanced literacy and supporting education? I think Obumwani has got something to say about that alongside some of our other panelists. So if we can start with you, Obumwani, if you'd like to tell us what you feel about that.
Okay. Just briefly, just by us even asking that question, we know what technology has helped us solve in this world today, and we know that there is virtually no industry that technology hasn't been applied to or isn't helping solve problems. So the question alone provides the answer. Then I would add to that and say that technology can be great equalizer in a classroom with diverse learners, because you could have a class of more than 30 or 50 if you go to government schools, and you'll find out that in this diverse class that are enormous, it's hard for the teacher to get information across to the other. But if at all that classroom in that diversity and the amount of people, they had technology, assistive technology, there's so many assistive technologies that could be used in a classroom, then that means the teacher could be very close to a student without having to shout or without having to be with the person in the same place. And also this can also appeal to learners with disability, in as much as it's not focused on just for people with disabilities, it's for everyone. All learners can take advantage of the assistive technology, but the disabilities can give learners access to opportunities that are previously closed to them, Take, for example, a student or a learner who's disabled and cannot be able to get to the school or cannot physically do the things that other public kids can do or other learners can do. With the new assistive technologies that can be put in place, the learner can learn from home, without having to be in a classroom. The learner can learn at home and feel like is still in the classroom with them. I've been opportune to study in the West, and sometimes you could actually even partake in a classroom if you're in the hospital, or if you couldn't make it to class. You could easily log into your portal, and then you could feel like you're in the classroom as well, because everything that the lecturer is being said is recorded. You can download it, and you can even hear it in lifetime, just like the Hangout that we have right now. We could be doing an assignment right now. We could be discussing an essay right now. If we had a group work to do and someone had to travel, that doesn't mean that group work cannot be done. All we have to do is to agree on a time, and everyone flips on their technology, which is the laptop and internet connectivity, and we get to work. We still work together to make sure that we reach the goal. And it's not only that of the disabled. It's also helping the teachers, the people who are teaching the learners, to be able to assess and collaborate with other teachers across the world or across a particular network in sharing information, because you find out that, just as she pointed out about the education model that we have, you learn certain things. Probably, since we're talking about Africa, we use Africa as an example. You can study something in Africa, and then you advance your studies, probably in the area of science or technology or any other way. Then you get to maybe America or Australia or Europe, and then they're teaching you something else, and you wonder why you are now learning something new, and it's not even collaborating with what you knew before. And it's because probably the people who are teaching you back home, they're also outdated because of what they're teaching you. They're teaching you from old information. It's good to have history, but then there's some kind of subjects that you teach. History doesn't become effective anymore. You have to move on with time. So definitely technology helps further education, and it helps literacy, and it goes a long way to make the learning place a better place.
Thank you very much, Obumwani. That was a very, very thoughtful observation. Much appreciated. Thank you. Now, I know that Naomi wanted to have a comment about that. Would you like to say something, Naomi?
I think I wanted to comment on I wanted to comment on the outmoded educational models we were talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I think that in Africa, it's more of the application. So you adopt concepts, you adopt models, and then what you want to do is to obviously localize it to your local terrain. So because this is how I look at it, that every society has got its good and bad models, if we may call them so. So if we're adopting it, the way we teach in Ghana and Nigeria, it's very, I think, as my colleagues have already stated, it's very rote, where you commit things to memory and you regurgitate. That's not what happens from where we took these models. That is not what happens. Everything is put into practice. So if you want to be, if you want to learn about science, it doesn't happen only in the classroom. You go out and experience nature. It doesn't happen like that necessarily in Ghana. So someone can describe what a typical Harmattan season would look like to you without probably going outside to experience it. That's just an example. So I think that it's not so much as it's outmoded, but I think it's the implementation. We're not implementing it, not making it relevant to.
Thank you very much, Eugenia. You're very well said. Naomi, would you like to continue the question that Obumwani answered regarding technology? Hello?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, thank you. Would you like to add your comments? I know you wanted to say something around technology and how it's advancing literacy.
Yes, it's just unfortunate. I lost Obiwani when he was speaking. But I think that, yes, I did. And I was actually enjoying what you were saying. I think the technology might help us to leapfrog and, in quotes, restore the years that the cankerworm has eaten. Because in terms of education, we have so much of catching up to do with other parts of the world. But technology might be a very good way to help us do the needful, because it essentially eliminates geographical boundaries. I believe that it democratizes opportunity, and it's very well aligned with youth culture. And then, of course, there's the convenience and access. I'm very particular about technology because it has been a driver for media, youth culture, pop culture, and entertainment. And that's actually the approach, using Graduate Pro as an example, that's the approach that we're basically using. Straddling the confluence between media, technology, education, and entertainment. And just to buttress Chula's point, where she talked about storytelling around the midnight fire or something like that, it's very important. And technology would basically help us plug into youth culture. Because of the pervasiveness of internet and mobile, we might be able to reach more people without necessarily having to gather anybody or gather people into a room. And then, of course, content is accessible whenever, wherever, and of course more affordable because associated costs are eliminated. I thought that I should chip that in.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And I know if you've got anything different to say, Anne, if you'd like to say it, I know you wanted to comment.
Yes. In terms of technology, I think technology has also provided alternative platforms for people accessing literature for reading. For instance, we must applaud the people who have developed e-books, their presence of e-libraries, their applications every day being developed, apps that enable people to read via mobile. We have the Kindle. So I'm thinking it is giving us an alternative ways of accessing literature, which is very key because it gets people to read.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And I've just got a comment from Elodie. You have something to say? Could you let us know what your feelings are on this subject, please?
I already mentioned I'm also a fan of technology in education. I just wanted to share a little thing on Rwanda, because there is really one initiative that stands out in particular in that domain, which is the Social Edu Initiative in Rwanda. And they've done really a partnership between Telkom, the government, universities, and Facebook, so that students receive in Rwanda a free data plan for accessing free edX MOOCs from some of the world's leading universities, including Harvard, MIT, UC Berkeley, Austrian national universities, and also including ETH Zurich. So they are really models that are existing out there from which we should inspire ourselves when talking about this kind of thing.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And just on to our fifth and final question. If I can just ask Eugenia to answer this one for me. It's about, oh, sorry. Oh, I apologize. Sorry. Sorry about that. It's what are the effective tools and mechanisms that can be used to actually tackle literacy across the age group? Could you let us know about your feelings there, please, Eugenia?
Sure. Well, literacy across the age group. So I predominantly work with primary school children through to tertiary level. And the one thing I'll say is that creativity in approaching reading. Now, I want to just group it in terms of adults, if that's okay. So basically, basically for children. For example, the program that we run, which is meant to encourage reading and therefore STEM functional illiteracy, if you want, is basically to get children to be excited about. It's not by saying go and get a book and read, but it's rather using like a reward system. So we create a fun competition out of it. So we do a spelling competition, and we encourage the children that, you know, you've got to learn how words behave. You've got to learn words. And where can you get any basis? It's from a book. Younger children, we would say that those are some of the strategies that you would want to consider. Basic, interactive, it's got to be fun, it's got to be creative. But I think, as one of my colleagues mentioned, the key thing to eradicating literacy is actually having access to literature, having access to books. For children in particular, I tend to think that, in as much as I agree with everybody who says that technology has a big role in education and therefore probably literacy, I think that for children in Africa, the introduction of the concept of books itself and not via an electronic device is the preferable. This basically is because, for instance, in Ghana, we don't have stable electricity. You're trying to reach that child who's in a rural area who probably would not have access to electricity. So how are you going to give them books? Gotcha. So for that sort of situation, I think that, especially for younger children, it's easier, it's cheaper to introduce them to the concept of physically holding books. Now, when we look at adult literacy, I tend to ask myself, which comes first? Do you make sure that you educate the child so they don't become an illiterate adult? That would be the first response, that if we stem the tide from there, where we're encouraging more children to read or helping them to learn and enjoy the process through any means. So as my colleague was saying, it could be a story time, sitting down and sharing stories. Any means, you definitely are not going to have adults who are illiterate. Now, let's not forget that to my country, so if you took Ghana, you may have someone who's illiterate in English, but not an illiterate in their local language. There's that. They are illiterate in their local language. Obviously, they can speak it but cannot write it. Then you are looking at a situation where you would want to get them literate in their local language first, which would be easier because they speak it anyway, before you would want to consider taking them on in the English language. I really want to emphasize on the fact that looking at it beginning with their local language, getting them to be able to read and write in their local language before introducing them to a national language, in the case of Ghana, which is English, or any other language yourself.
Wow, thank you very much for that. That's a different. Thank you very much for being here. So we've come to the end of our panel discussion, but now it's over to you, our fabulous audience. Thank you for listening, and thank you for storing up your questions. I've got a few that have come to me already, but it's your turn as our audience to ask your questions. Now, this session is going to last about 15 minutes, so we just started a little bit late. And if you want to still post your questions, you can do so in the chat feature on the left-hand side of the broadcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, or directly if you're on the Facebook page for GEMBI Communications. So I'll go to our first question. I'll read the question, and any of our panel members who feel this question resonates with them, please indicate to me, and I'll invite you to answer it. So this is a question from Sintum Kingsley, based in Nigeria. How do we scale innovations in education sector for the innovators to where they're actually needed? I think we touched on some of this a little bit earlier, but if anyone feels they've got something they'd like to contribute to that question, please let me know. Who's going to attempt this one? Anne, is that going to be you?
Could you please repeat the question? Could you please repeat the question?
No problem.
Yes.
The question is, how do we scale innovations in education, in the education sector, from the innovators to where it's actually needed? So not enough just to keep talking about it and innovating, take it to where it's needed, like in the rural areas or in schools that could potentially deal with some technology.
So if I can come
No
up.
takers?
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you, Elodie.
Okay.
No, and I don't want to cut you if you want to enter that.
Okay, go ahead.
It's a tough one. So let me attempt it. Yeah, so this is a little bit what we've been looking at, right? We saw across Africa many different very exciting ways to address these challenges. And we wanted to not just reinvent the wheel, but look at these good experiences, how we could take them in another country. The focus was for us Angola. And the question is indeed, you can't just go there, put the papers together of what they've been doing and just like hand it out to the country in which you're trying to replicate that. There is definitely a question of adapting it to local systems, local thinking, local culture. That is indeed something that takes time. And the way we thought was best was to actually partner with the institutions that we're actually promoting these very exciting models. Now, in some cases, these partners don't have yet the capacity to go and look at another context, another country, while they're actually developing their own programs. So that's that has been not always very easy, but definitely partnership for us with these that are actually doing something very exciting is key. The other aspect is really about sharing these experiences, having a place where you can communicate and talk about these things so that people doing similar stuff can integrate additional modules to extend a little bit the scope of the activities that they were already doing. And the last aspect for me was definitely the question of financing or supporting those that are doing actually very cool stuff, expand, right? So how do you provide them with the means to actually go and expand their models across the continent? That really depends on them being able to provide the sort of social value that they're already giving out in the place where they are, and transform that in potentially something that is interesting and attractive for investors, impact investors, I would say. So for me, that would be the three angles from which to tackle that question of replicating, scaling up.
Great, thank you very much. And Anne, did you have anything you wanted to contribute?
No, I wouldn't add anything to what she said. I would go with the points she's mentioned.
Thank you very much. And you just came on, everyone. Did you want to say something? No? Okay. So we can go on to our third question from Ilo Bono Boniface from Botswana. The topic that needs to be addressed: adopt a schools program for the private sector as a way of including and inculating ICT in learning. This is to try and understand what role does every government play in order to make this feasible. Mostly South Africa. We need to be on par with international standards of learning for competence sake. So, the private sector. Who would like to talk about the private sector within education? We spoke about it a bit earlier ourselves, so for this particular question.
Sorry, could you tell me what was the question?
Yes, what's the question, please?
The question was, adopt a schools program for the private sector as a way of including ICT in learning. And the rationale for that was just to be on par with other global countries in the world. So including the private sector.
So sorry, the question is as to whether we should adopt the private school model for public schools. Is that where it's headed?
No, adopt a school. A private sector company adopts a school and helps a school learn about ICT. So including the private sector in learning.
Right. So a private school adopts a school as a link, like linking schools.
Yes.
Practices. and whether that is a good, whether that is a concept to be considered?
Yes.
I mean, I would say that, and I'm aware of schools that are in Ghana that do that partner with. I know schools that do run a system where, so necessarily the ICT area, but what they do is once they're done with their books in the school, they send it to less privileged schools, for instance. So it's a model that can be done, that can be replicated, and actually should be encouraged. I think it fosters for healthier relations. It probably, and maybe I'm dipping my toes in political areas, but it probably relieves the government of too many expectations, if I may call it. So I think that private schools will find themselves in a position where they can help, in whatever field, be it ICT, literacy, even I am aware of schools that actually go and teach in public schools. Now, I know it's a question we're meant to be answering, but I have had a question as to how it is that private schools and public within our system teach very differently. In advanced countries, the prestige of going to a private school is more about maybe cronyism, but in our system, we tend to realize that if you go to a public school, you're the poorer for it. It behoves on private schools who are in that position where they can partner with other schools to do so.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Now, some of our audience, unfortunately, are complaining they can't post their questions. Could you please go onto the Facebook for Djembe Communications and you can post them there. Thank you. All right, okay. Does anyone want to say anything else before we get the last of our questions?
I just wanted to clarify, because I think that the last question is kind of important to address, but I'm not sure that I got it still. Was she talking about private schools adopting public schools?
No, private enterprise adopting schools.
I thought so. Okay, can I quickly say something about that? Because it's something that I also feel very strongly about. Hello?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. So here's the thing, right? I kind of feel like the whole adopt a school model is, while it's like, for me, it's like putting a bandage on a wound that needs to be treated. I've always said that education and the way we've approached it here and what every other panelist has said, it's a very serious issue. And because of the inadequacies that I highlighted earlier in terms of government interventions, infrastructure, for the things that we need to do for the graduates, both from primary, tertiary, and higher education, to be competent in today's marketplace, there's actually some serious deficiency. And that's where the private sector can play a very important role. But I do worry that we do have quite a number of silo interventions from different companies across different places with their very subjective objectives, which the schools have to work with them to achieve. Every industry, every sector, every cluster, every economy usually have a core set of skills that they require for people who look for jobs within those sectors to be effective. So I'm saying, why don't we have a collective system where, as opposed to one private institution sponsoring or adopting one school and then giving them 2 computers for their ICT lab and one else building a digital library, and there's no cohesion in terms of the policy or the objective or the strategy. Why don't we have them come together, agree what the occupational standards or the competency frameworks or the learning outcomes should be, and then based on whatever is achieved as a collective, they can decide what the rollout strategy should be. So it's like a mass adoption of schools, but there is a cohesive and a streamlined set of objectives that every single institution is working with. If we do that, then I think that it will go a long way to help us address the issues. I kind of see the individual adoption as some sort of window dressing. You know, you paint the schools, you supply math sets, you give them school bags, and then, you know, it's beyond that. We need to once and for all just deal with the issues we have in education.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Naomi. Due to time, I'm sorry, our audience out there, it's now 20 to 6. We've had our 30 minutes, but I just want to get some closing statements from our panelists. But firstly, I also want to say, keep posting your questions. We will deal with your questions after the show. But thank you very much for those who have posted questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of you. But if I could thank our panelists and go back to all one at a time and just have you, just in your order, just give a one-word closing statement as to where you want African education made in Africa to go. If I can start with Anne, can I get your closing statement on education made in Africa, please?
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, I can hear you.
Okay. This is a very, this conversation should not stop. It should continue on various platforms, because we need to drum it in our heads, and we need to say, like, the only thing, the Africans provide African solutions to African problems. And we need to, I'll go back to reading, and I'll say, like what I had said earlier, a reading nation is a thinking nation. A thinking nation is an empowered nation. An empowered nation grows the economy. There is no shortcut.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Anne. And Elodie, how can we get your closing statements, please?
I'm not sure I can say anything after Anne, right? So, I mean, she said it really all. Reading is empowering, and I think that's a very key, strong message, Anne. Thank you for that. I think that's a very strong thing. I just would like to say that perhaps for me there is one important aspect, is that financing education is a core challenge, and it's indeed in principle a role of government. But while government are not ready having their base mass financing through tax education, or having private company financing through tax education, private sector models that have emerged are actually filling a very important gap. And I think some of them are doing really good work in making good education affordable for many people and providing certain skills. So I really think that private schools can play a very important role. And I'd like us to, in the next session, look into how we can finance this. What are the models? I think impact investing is a very exciting one. To look at the link between capacity building, matching grants, and impact finance.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And if I can ask Eugenia to give us your closing statements, please.
Well, I think that I'll just sum it up in two quick statements. The first is one of the statements that I sing along every day, which is that children are really not our future. They are our present. And so we must ensure that everything that we do, including promoting reading, as our colleague is talking about, should be about them. Education is really about children. It's not about businesses. It's about empowering the next generation, so that we basically will have a better situation than we had before. I would say, in terms of where this conversation should lead, find applicable strategies within the educational models we have adopted that can solve African problems.
Yep. Thank you very much. And for yourself, Naomi, can I get a closing statement from you, please?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me, please?
How's that?
Okay, can you hear me now? I just want to be sure you can hear me. Okay.
No problem.
Great. So it's been said that if you want to forecast the future of a particular country, look at its present crop of young people and project 25 years. When I do that for the continent, I'm a bit concerned because of what I see. Now, on the flip side, the media has a stranglehold on today's young people. Like I said earlier, it determines pop culture, youth culture, and basically determines behavior on a mass scale. I don't see that as a problem. I see it as an opportunity for people who design curricula, who are responsible for imparting knowledge. I think that we should be a little less serious and a little more interactive in the way that we pass across information. I also think that we should look towards engaging channels like augmented reality, virtual reality, and then just help to, what's the word now, to destigmatize vocational training so that young people who do not have your typical white-collar jobs will not feel will not feel inferior if they have to pursue vocational careers. And that should help with our unemployment situation. Yes.
Wow, thank you very much. That's another conversation completely there. Thank you very much, Naomi. And finally, can I get a closing statement from you, please, Obumwani? You've been very patient.
Okay, thank you. Just like I stressed earlier, on the issue of the technology being very helping towards the education in Africa, I see a new crop of African IT and software engineers who are now changing the world or bringing a new different status quo in that industry. I challenge them to develop more technologies that would aid learning. I know that they're looking for money, but then I hope that they're going to develop technologies that will aid literacy, because just like one of my colleagues said, it's only Africans that can solve African problems. And just like Mandela had mentioned, I said education is the most powerful weapon that we can use to change the world. And just as I started that Literacy Africa project, within 4 months, like I said, I and a friend of mine, just 2 people, were able to ship over 100,000 books. So it always seems impossible until it's done. So I hope that the conversation doesn't end here and action follows the conversation. We can't just keep having the conversation. Action has to follow it. And I'm always willing to discuss anything related to literacy in Africa, and I'm willing to act upon it as I've done in the past. It's proving that I follow up my discussions with action. So I hope that we can individually go out from here, including the people who are listening. Will go out and do something, in as much as we continue the conversation, but let it be that we act, in no matter how small the capacity is. Action, they say, speaks louder than words. So let's follow that path.
Great. Thank you so much to all our participants, all fantastic closing statements, and the conversation will continue. This actual webinar will be turned into a podcast, and we will continue the conversation. We'll let you know what type of platform we will use, and it'd be great if you all could keep networking together. But thank you very much. Much appreciated. And let's make education.
Please invite more men. Please invite more men to this conversation. Please invite more men. I'm busy agitating for gender equality in this webinar. And I enjoyed it. Yeah, thank you.
Everybody for listening, and we'll continue the conversation. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.